Hi, I'm Genevieve Douglas, and I'm a reporter with Bloomberg Law, and we are here at the Littler Executive Employer Conference. Welcome to the news desk.
Thank you for having us.
Today I have with me Littler attorneys Denise Visconti, who is an office managing shareholder, and James Frederick, who is a shareholder.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So we are going to talk about employers and LGBTQ workers in the workplace. First, I was going to ask you, James, to give our audience a brief recap of the current state of the law in terms of LGBTQ
Quick
protections.
recap, I like that,
Yeah.
quick recap. No, that's a good question. I think there's no doubt we can admit that there has been a definite shift in philosophy from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. That's just pure fact. But at the end of the day, the law is the law. And while Trump is getting into a position where he's appointing conservative justices, what have you, who might change the landscape of the LGBT legal realm, the law's the law now. So, for example, the Second Circuit this year addressed in the Zarda case the question of, does Title VII cover sexual orientation? So when you talk about anti-sex discrimination that's set forth in Title VII, does sexual orientation fall under that? And in the past, the argument has been focused on sexual stereotypes. You don't act like the traditional male, but very head-on, the Second Circuit said, you cannot consider someone's sexual orientation without considering their sex, because you're very explicitly looking at their sex and the sex of the person to whom they're attracted. And so they very clearly said, yes, in the affirmative, Title VII, the ban against sexual discrimination, sexual orientation is a subsect of that. So very clear. So that's what we have there. I think the law is clear. The Seventh Circuit has spoken to that as well in the Hively case. So I think it's pretty clear. Now, again, the infrastructure that's being created right now by President Trump that could transition that, and the outcome could be different.
Right, certainly. And Denise, I know there's been a lot of watching and waiting on the whether Masterpiece Cake will make it to the Supreme Court. And could you speak to that a bit?
Sure, and so now it is at the Supreme Court.
Okay, there we go.
And really, it's an interesting case in part because it's a dispute between a business providing services to someone who happens to be a same-sex couple and a same-sex couple seeking to have a wedding cake, and so it essentially pits religion against individuals who are simply trying to have a cake for their wedding. But I think the importance of the issue and why the Supreme Court has taken it up is this is more about cake, right? It is a question of do the public accommodation laws require someone, some shop owner or someone providing services to serve all? Or can that shop owner, whatever the service, pick and choose based on the person asking for the service? And so it's an interesting question, and it'll be interesting. The Supreme Court will likely rule on that very, very soon.
Yeah, and so to only add further complexity to the discussion and the issue at hand, Denise, the EEOC seems to also have settled this matter.
I think, as James was saying, the law is the law, and the EEOC, the courts are coming along, and I think really finally agreeing with the EEOC. The EEOC for years has said that sexual orientation and gender identity discrimination or discrimination based on someone's status as an LGBTQ individual is discrimination under Title VII. The EEOC has long said that. They made it part of their strategic plan several years ago to essentially eradicate that type of discrimination. And the courts are now, I think the cases have taken a little time to work up to the courts, but now we have circuit court decisions essentially confirming and affirming that law. And so while I think it does feel like the law may be a little unsettled because of the new administration and the change of philosophies, I think the courts and the EEOC are really in agreement in terms of what the law says, and the law says discrimination based on someone's sexual orientation or gender identity really is a problem.
Absolutely. And so I guess I'll leave this open to whoever wants to jump on it. So where does this leave employers, right? Because certainly everything that we've just discussed is something that I'm sure counsel at every company is following closely. But when it comes to actual policies and practices in the workplace, they don't have to just do what the law says. There's certainly some room there. So.
Right. No, I think that's a fair point. The way to put it, the law is the floor. And you can do more than that, but know where you are. And I think there's a couple of components of the question of what should employers do. It's look at your current policies. Oftentimes, I will have clients who offer protections. They don't discriminate against sexual orientation or gender identity, but they're policies from years ago. And so I think look at your policies, know what your policies say. Self-ID, your workforce, know your workforce, because a lot of times people think, oh, I don't have any gay employees, and that tends to not be the case.
Right.
And so I think those types of things, review and see what kind of company you want to be. Where do you want to go? What do you want to offer? And I think the administrative burden of trying to say, here's what we have to do in California, but we don't have to do it over here in this state, I think it's going to be too difficult. I think the easier way to do it if you're a big national company is go with the highest operating denominator there. If California is the highest, do that across the board if that's feasible.
Right. And you want to engender a culture of inclusion and diversity.
Yeah, I think a lot of employers are, given the varying level of the laws across the U.S., the potential uncertainty that some might view the law to be in. A lot of employers are really adopting the philosophy of do the right thing. We want to attract talent, and we want to be an open and inclusive environment. And really, it is, as James said, it's really the highest common denominator, and do the right thing.
Well, thank you both so much for doing
having us.
this interview and kind of giving me the lay of the land, and I appreciate your insights and your comments, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.